Coming up on show 705, Hyundai say they're building the world's biggest superfast electric vehicle charging station. We'll just have a look at that, shall we? Plus, Bloomberg talk about the 5 trends ushering in a new age of EVs. Comcast doing their bit for EVs. A veteran McLaren designer moving over to work on electric vehicles, and a new Chevy EV for China. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening around the world. Welcome to EV News Daily for Saturday, 22nd of February. My name's Martyn Lee, and I go through every EV story, so you don't have to. Welcome to new executive producer Jim Duggan. Thank you, Jim, for signing up at the top level. Well, most individuals do anyway. You can always do more, of course, if you want to. And a new producer, that would be Randy M. I don't know your surname, Randy, but on Patreon, at least at my end, it says Randy M. And thank you, as always, to myev.com for helping me make this show. If you're in the USA, then please do check it out. Great resource. Now, a couple of reviews I do want to get to quickly. Pete Lawrance in iTunes, Great Britain, says a great informative podcast. I download it before leaving the house on my commute. I don't know how he has time to get all the EV news stories every day and put the podcast together. Neither do I some days. And Ian Tatt, also from iTunes GB, says Martyn's dulcid tones... Well, Martyn's dulcid tones accompany my daily lunchtime walk. Listen to a few now, and for quite some time, and decided to leave a review recommended to me by Darren Sant of Yorkshire EVs. Thank you very much, Ian. And you can leave a review as well if you want to, if you can do, on Apple Podcasts. Kind of new name for iTunes with podcasts, and it really helps grow the show. Hyundai Motor Company is planning to open the world's biggest superfast electric vehicle charging station in Seoul. Sometime in the first half of this year, the work is going to be complete. It's going to be the first time an EV charging station replaces a gas station, says this article. And this is coming via etnews.com. Let's look at that. The world's largest supercharging station, or superfast charging station. Okay, that's quite a claim, but we'll look at that. And also the first time that an EV charging station has replaced an existing gas station. I know that bit isn't true. There's at least one that I know of in the USA that has been partly funded by, I believe, either some local money or even Electrify America money, but either way, no, that's been done before. Need to do their research on this. However, is this the world's largest superfast EV charging station? Let's find out. Hyundai Motor Company is going to open a superfast charging station, which they've called High Charger. All right, at a former gas station. There's going to be 8 of the 350 kilowatt chargers. South Korea's current biggest charging station has 12 Tesla superchargers, but they're only 125 kilowatts, so it says that actually 8 times 350 is bigger than 12 times 125. Well, I can't argue with the maths there, but even so, even 8 times 350, that still doesn't make it, I'm sorry to pull this article apart, it still doesn't make it the world's largest EV charging station. There's plenty more bigger. There's some Tesla superchargers around the world that have multiple more chargers than that. However, this is good news. Compared to what Hyundai say are their high chargers, they are charging at twice the speed of a Tesla supercharger. Yeah, I suppose the V2 ones will top out not as fast as the V3 ones, and actually sort of 125 kilowatts on V2. Is it? I don't know. I don't own a Tesla, but I think it's about that. And these high-power chargers, 8 of them going in an old gas station. Look, I don't mean to be a negative Nancy on this. Of course, I think this is a fantastic story. Just it's maybe not the world's biggest, or it's certainly not the first. And so this is great if there's people in Seoul, there will be loads of people in Seoul who live in apartment blocks and office buildings who are heading out on their lunch break or something and want to just charge their car quickly for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. In the past, I'll hold my hand up and say, in the past, I have criticised the sometimes kind of table chair response of, where do we put EV charging stations? Oh, let's replace all the petrol stations. That is not a like-for-like case, but I'll admit I've been wrong on that in the past, because I've said in the past, very kind of obvious, where do we put them? Well, where we fill up at the moment, duh. No, it's different. You charge at home, you charge overnight. You charge opportunity charging if you go to the supermarket for an hour. But as people who live in big cities have emailed me over the years, really, and gone, look, I can't charge off-street. I live in an apartment block. Maybe I've got parking, but the building isn't going to put them into the garage anytime soon. I need somewhere to fast charge. And that is a really good point, because a lot of petrol stations do operate on land in big cities that would otherwise be built on and be developed. And so if they can convert that land use from petrol stations to EV charging stations and still make a profit and make sure that land isn't then sold off to developers to put another office block on, well, it seems to me like a good way of serving those people who don't have off-road parking, who do want to charge quickly, who live in big metropolitan areas and don't have anywhere else to charge it. Okay, 5 trends ushering in the age of EVs at the recent Bloomberg NEF Summit in San Francisco. BNEF's Colin McCarricker made a case for EVs finally reaching the end of the beginning as businesses and consumers recognise and begin to embrace EVs en masse. I talked about this story earlier in the week on the podcast, but he does list 5 things that are ushering in EVs, and so I thought I'd give you those 5 things. I didn't mention them earlier in the week. Number 1, 2- and 3-wheeled vehicles. Colin said that over 70 million 2- and 3-wheeled vehicles are sold every year, and 30% of those, let's call it a third, are already electric. Municipal electric buses is next on his list, and places like Shenzhen, China's BYD led the push to fully electrify Shenzhen's more than 16,000 buses. And then by the end of last year, I believe it was, end of 19, they wanted to have all the taxi fleet fully electric. Number 3, digital ride-hailing. Uber has created additional incentives for drivers of hybrid and electric vehicles, even launching a fully electric Uber Green service in Paris and Lisbon. Number 4, last-mile delivery. Urban parcel delivery is being transformed before our eyes, and in really big cities, places like New York City, they're actually using e-bikes now for last-mile delivery. And finally, number 5, the 2-car family. That is a reason why electrification is happening so quickly. The 2-car family is a place where the second vehicle is a juicy target to be an EV. It's opened the door for many households around the world to add an EV to the family, often the car used for errands and chores and doing the school run, and even if people don't want to give up the long-range diesel, they think they need it. The second car is actually perfect for changing to EV. It's our story, it might be your story, it's what we did, and then we never drove the number 1 car. We always drove what was the number 2 car, and it became the number 1 car because the EV was so much better. Okay, moving on. Comcast has announced the completion of a 760 panel rooftop solar installation at its multi-purpose facility in Washington on Michigan Avenue in Washington, D.C. The system generates 385 megawatts of energy annually, about 37 homes worth of electricity. Says Solar Power World Online website, electric vehicle charging stations at multiple Comcast facilities are now being installed to reduce transportation-related emissions and making it easy for Comcast employees and residents to go green. By installing the solar panels on existing buildings, Comcast is reducing construction materials needed and further reducing their environmental impact. I'm so excited about solar at the moment. Funny, isn't it? A technology that's been around forever. Really, in the last 10 years, has had a lot of momentum with incentives and plunging and plummeting prices, really kind of falling off a cliff over the last 10 years. I'm not the expert on that. Of course, you need to ask someone let me think. Yeah, that would be Phil Roberts of Electric Future, EF.Energy. He is one of our premium partners and I've been on the show a couple of times. However, from what I understand and the things that he's told me, the prices are still coming down on solar. We will be adding PV to our house this year. We moved in recently. This is going to be a long-term house for us to start. We'll have started a family in and going to be in it for a while. Even if we weren't, I think it would make sense. We've always charged our EV on the 3-pin plug. We just charge it overnight. It's the use case for the car. But we're 4 or 5 weeks away from a new Zappy going in, the new version 2 Zappy, and that, of course, is all ready to go with solar. We haven't got PV yet, so the charger goes in over the next month or so. We've decided on which electrician to use, and there's the waiting times on the Zappies come way down, by the way. They're really getting on top of that. It's such a popular product, a victim of its own success in many ways, but they're sorting it all out, and new facilities, new production, making a ton of them, and mine, an untethered white one, will be winging its way to me sometime in the next month or two, and then on the side of the house, and then when that's in, and as funds allow, So it'll take a couple of months, but then we'll add some PV. Mrs. Lee is fully on board with this. I've not shown her what the bill is going to be yet. I haven't got any quotes in. However, it's got to be the right thing to do. Yeah, it has to be the right thing to do, doesn't it? And so, let's move on. Let's talk about a veteran designer for supercar McLaren moving to an EV startup. Across his nearly 30-year career at McLaren, a chap called Mark Roberts has led the design of essentially every hypercar. He worked on the F1, the P1, the Senna, and more, says thedrive.com. And while it's hard to imagine there being any bigger and better things than penning exotic supercars for the likes of McLaren, he thinks there is something else out there because he's just left McLaren to go to an EV car startup. They're called Charge Cars, and they're known primarily for their electric-converted classic cars, things like classic Ford Mustangs, that are as torquey as they are pricey, says The Drive. He's going to influence future products, and that will include further EV-converted classics to fulfill their mission of reimagining classic vehicles with an EV powertrain, all new high-tech updates, but preserving the classic design externally. And finally, Chevrolet has launched the Menlo. Talked about this on the podcast many times, and it's finally now launched. The Menlo is going to be a fully electric vehicle, actually Chevrolet's first in China, as it happens. Initially being offered in Beijing, the Chevrolet Menlo is available in 4 variants. It starts at 159,000 RMB. It's about $23,000 equivalent, and all the way up to 180,000 RMB. After national subsidies for energy vehicles, NEVs, according to Green Car Congress, the vehicle has a constant speed range, this will be fun, a constant speed range of 255 miles. You see, in China, they still use the NEDC test cycle. Sometimes, I've thought about just saying halve it, because it's not always halve it, but it's nowhere near EPA, nowhere near WLTP. You know what, if it does 125 miles, this car would probably be more accurate. However, under real-world conditions, we aren't to know yet until somebody posts a YouTube video. The Chevrolet Menlo features a lot of connectivity. It's got OnStar, MyLink Plus, over-the-air updates, Apple CarPlay, Baidu Car Life, virtual car key, virtual remote control, intelligent voice recognition, and I didn't realise until recently how important high-tech connected cars are to the EV experience. And if you want to hear what that's all about, we did a show with the Chief Strategy Officer of WM Motor, one of the biggest Chinese makers, actually. He was in the UK for a couple of days, and so I went to catch up with Rupert Mitchell. He's actually a sponsor of the podcast as well. Second time he's been on, we did a China update. It was last Saturday, if you're interested, and a fascinating chat about what do Chinese EV buyers really want out of their car. Is it range, 0 to 60, choice of colours? What is it? And so the answer was connected cars is the big thing. 0 to 60, way down the list. They don't care, right? And it's mostly SUVs as well. Anyway, have a listen to that show. I highly recommend it. I learned a lot. And I'm nerded up to my eyeballs in this stuff, and I still learn a lot. So have a listen if you can. Right, question of the week. I'll read out the answers on Sunday. Are you happy to pay extra for added features after you've bought your car, if this is the way that connected EVs are going? Email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com, or leave a comment on the YouTube show. Well, there are 235 patrons of the podcast. Patreon is a website where you can support creators, patreon.com/evnewsdaily. My premium partners, as I mentioned, Phil at Electric Future, Phil Roberts, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, and newly added to the list, Brightsmith. You can check them out at brightsmithgroup.com for clean tech talent. If you can leave a little review, like those guys at the start did on Apple Podcasts, that really helps me out. Have a wonderful day. Catch you soon. Remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.